Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Danish saxophonist, improviser, and composer Mia Dyberg. She talked to us about her latest 2018 CD called Ticket with her trio. She grew up in Denmark, and these days she is residing in Berlin, Germany, where she works as a freelance musician performing with improv-musicians, honing an ability to combine sound experiments with melancholy and a unique melodic expression. Standing as one of the new exciting voices on the European jazz scene, she is an active project leader and co-founder of the International Improvisers Collective, the community, and so much more. So please get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
Hello, Joe.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for asking.
So let's talk about your latest CD, Ticket, with your trio. Talk to me about this album. What went into this album?
I got into the world of William Burroughs, the beat poet, about 3 years ago. And I found this CD with him reading his poems and doing tape recordings from different hotel rooms where he was staying. And then I got really inspired of listening to the sound of his voice when he read his poems and how his voice was rhythmical in a way that was very interesting to me. And from then on, I started to improvise to recordings to his voice, and then I transcribed my recordings afterwards and composed the pieces for the album Ticket through this process.
Was it hard?
No, I would say no, because it was very inspiring for me. And it was a way, I could actually say that it was a way for me to return in a way to jazz, so the jazz language a bit, or come into the jazz language in another way that I came from, because I've studied jazz earlier, and then I kind of went away from it and a bit, and this was a new actually entrance to, or coming back to jazz, but through a beat poet's mouth, you could say. That's a good expression. Like through this hearing William Burroughs read his poetry, I got more inspired about jazz. That's a better phrasing. So it got more inspiring for me to play free jazz and to play time, because I liked that, but I got a bit away from it. Yes, I have this tendency to do a very long answers to a very short question.
That's okay. But, I like it.
Yeah, it might work, right? Good to hear.
Yes. So you grew up in Denmark.
I grew up in Sweden, and then when I was 16, I moved to Denmark. So I'm both Danish and Swedish.
So
that's the short answer. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how did you get interested in jazz? Jazz
is actually a very melodic language, you could say, and I came from melodies. I started playing together with my father. He taught me to play in the beginning, and he one of the things he did was to accompany me on piano, and then he taught me standards, so it's like simple standards, and then he said like improvise with the melody or improvise with one note. And then when I got more confident with one note, improvise with two notes, and the melody and three notes. And so it was always about melody and hearing what you played coming from that. And then theory I learned later, but the question was more how I got into it. But I would say that was how I got into it from the beginning. Yes, and then I listened to more avant-garde recordings with Eric Dolphy and a lot of other artists, Art Ensemble of Chicago, and I understood that this was very much my language in jazz. Yes, so then I got interested in it again as an adult, you could say.
So you went on to the conservatory in Copenhagen.
Yes, also this, yes. Yes, and at that time it was a jazz school, you could say, or like more a jazz school than it is now. I studied, when it was still more jazz and theory, and now it's developed a little bit the school, but that's another talk probably. Yes.
What did you learn about jazz there?
I think we learn ourselves a lot. I think we are our own teachers. I mean, no matter what we are, where we are, and where we study. There's a lot of really, really excellent musicians in Copenhagen, and I had a lot of great teachers. For example, I studied with Jakob Anderskov, the piano player, and he taught me about composition also, in you could say in the jazz language. And I also studied with Søren Kjærgaard, another piano player. That's more like where we study 12-tone composition and more about the rhythm, how to use rhythm in your compositions. I learned a lot of things, I think. But
sure.
Where I would say I learned more maybe about jazz was before I went to the conservatory. I went 2 years in Sweden on this school where you live on the school and you just play all the time. And that's the time of my life where I played most. Like you just played like almost 20 hours a day. Now maybe you sleep a bit more, but so just play. That's where I really learned a lot, like having a lot of different ensembles and not relating to the freelance life yet, but just at that time we were just only playing music. We spent a lot of time on the actual playing, and that was a really big learning experience for me. Yes, it's called the Fridhem Folkhögskola, the school, and it's a really excellent school. I would recommend it to everyone. Yes, so the conclusion, I guess, is playing. The more you play, the more you learn.
Yeah.
I would say.
I want to ask you about this international improvisers collective called The Community. Seems like a really cool program.
Yes, it is. So it started in 2014 when me and my colleague and tenor saxophone player Nana P, we were going a lot back and forth to Berlin and between Berlin and Copenhagen, and we were very interested in the Berlin scene because there seems to be a very inviting and interactive, or there is a very inviting and interactive scene here where the musician, especially in the improvised music scene, when I say improvised music, I mean like mostly totally improvised. Everything is totally improvised. But there's also, people also play compositions, but the point was that we met and we were interested in this community that was in Berlin, and we wanted to bring it to Copenhagen, or somehow we wanted to enhance that in Copenhagen. So all these really, really great musicians in Copenhagen, but there was not as much of this community feeling as we found in Berlin. So then we were like, let's start it here. So we will bring it here. There was one time we sat in her family's garden house, and we decided now we start it. And it's actually about also enhancing what is already there, because the people are there, but we just wanted to gather people in a collective. So that's how it started. And then we started to do events where we engaged more and more people, tried to get more and more people involved. And then luckily, I think 2 years ago now, we got 2 more members in the union, in the board, and we became an official union, which gives you a lot of more opportunities for organizing. Then we got Maria Dyberg, alto saxophone player from Denmark, and a double bass player, Jonathan Orestrup, also became in the board, and then a little bit after, the double bass player Asger Thompson also become part of the board. So we are annually arranging concerts like every winter jazz in Copenhagen and every Copenhagen Jazz Festival, and sometimes events in between. We arrange events for the whole collective. We would try to embrace as many people as possible from the collective and do different themes for the events. So last jazz festival we had in Copenhagen, we had me and Jonathan Orestrup curated it, and we had this 3 cities theme where we had we booked, our booking policy went for like 3 cities, so Oslo, Copenhagen, and Ljubljana. So we found artists from 2 solo artists from Ljubljana and then a band from Oslo, and we did some interactive sets in between, which is also one of our themes in the community, to do this interactive parts between the people, so you meet new people in the music, like while playing. And there's also a lot of great news coming up for the community, which I can talk more about, but I don't know if you had a new question or...
Yeah, I guess you're in Berlin and you're in the European scene. I want to know, how strong is jazz in Europe these days?
Yeah, it's both interesting questions. It depends where you... it's good to travel, I think, to go on tour, and because then you can reach out to more people. For example, if you say we played in December last year, we played in Gothenburg in Sweden at this place called Brött, which is like a famous free jazz place. They have a good audience there because they're also like a historic place, so people go there. They know that it would be good. So there's a lot of audience there, for example. And they are very open and interested in that kind of music because they are searching for that kind of music. We went to Dublin also recently in a 12-point festival. And here's a bit more mixed audience, I would say, so that's like the innovators of the music industry, which is invited for this. But some of them is more into free jazz, and some of them are more into more traditional jazz or more. So some people would grasp it, and some would be less interested in it.
My next question to you is, why do you like being a musician?
There's a lot of reasons. Something I thought about recently, which is I think is really inspiring could be inspiring for everyone, is actually this fact about that it's so global. Like, especially as an improvising musician, like when you do free improvised music, you can basically play with anyone from anywhere, anytime. And you don't need to understand the same language. So somehow really beautiful also in this kind of politically very challenged world we have today, and there's a lot of immigrant crisis and things, then I just found the idea that musicians can be so global. You can play with anyone from any country. I just got really inspired about this fact the other day, like thinking about that it's so, and what we're doing when we're traveling around the world and we're embracing like whatever culture. Actually, if you can find a musical playground in the same language in the music, doesn't matter with all the other cultural differences actually, or what it would be. That's more like a general inspiration. Otherwise, I think musically it's also very inspiring for me that we can express a lot of things in the music that we don't necessarily want to or have words for how we say in words. We can you play it out, and somehow, and after I played music almost all my life, but so this is I have a lot of experience with that, so I almost have, not totally, but almost have more experience with playing than music than talking. That's not totally, but it's somehow interesting how much musicians say when they're playing or what they express. Or somehow a lot of things get out through the music that doesn't get out in the words. If you're not a poet, maybe if you're a poet, then you get more things out in the words.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is some reasons, yeah. But so what do you got? You have another question?
I got one last question for you, and it's this. Everyone has their perception, I should say, of who they think you are. Your family, your friends, your fans. But you know yourself best. Tell me, who do you think you are?
That's a great question. Who do I think I am?
Yes.
I keep hearing this phrase in my head. Who do you think you are?
That's right.
like something about don't think you're bigger than you are, or but that's just expression. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I would say, okay, the first things that pop into my head is nature, actually. I just realized that I'm so extremely connected to nature that, for example, I was in Portugal recently in 2.5 weeks, and every day I went to touch the ocean with my hands or my feet. Or like just this 5 minutes walking along the beach, like it just really made my day every day. It was so strong, and this connection to feel the nature or see the nature, it has a strong value for me, or even more than value. But that was something about who I am. I think that I am very somehow rooted in nature. And I also realized, like, when you don't have, all this modern life can be stressful life, and when you take all that away and you come back to what you actually are, I think I'm actually really also a very calm, peaceful person from the core, or you would say. This is my first reaction.
That's a great answer. I saved the toughest one for last. So thank you for taking a minute out to speak with me here at Neon Jazz, and thank you for the music.
Yes, thank you. It was interesting to speak with you, and very, very good questions.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Denmark, Berlin, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Mia for her time, her music, and her stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.